Hi, good morning. On behalf of NASSCOM, I would like to welcome you all to the session on digital transformation and the role of RPA. We have an insightful session lined up for you today, where the panel will discuss how robotic process automation can lead to more efficient business processes, share their learnings on implementing the solutions, and much more. The panel will be moderated by Mr. Animesh Mathur, Vice President Marketing at TCM Infotech Limited. Now I would request Animesh to initiate the discussions.
Thanks, Devanshu. Appreciate that introduction. And folks, we've got a real strong battle-hardened team out here to discuss on the topic. We've got Alok, who is the CEO, and he's also an author. So that author bit came first to me, and then the CEO bit came for RPA Tech. So he'll give you insights on his journey since 2017. Then we have Rakesh, who's the CEO of Quintes. And he and the team at his company have handled a lot of transformation projects. And we also have Udeet Bhagat. He is the VP for Asia Pac and Middle East Africa for PureSoftware. All these folks have been in the trenches. They have been there, done that. So it'll be insightful to get from them their real stories and how the whole field has evolved with respect to RPA. So I have a wonderful job over here. I'm going to be asking the questions and gathering the knowledge from them. And I would suggest y'all also take this opportunity to gather the knowledge. And if you all have questions, please put them up on the Q&A board. We'll try and capture those as time permits, or maybe we'll do them later offline. So folks, why don't you all introduce yourselves? Alok, if we start with you, and then Rakesh and Udeet, if you all can take a minute to two to just introduce yourselves and give a background.
Thank you, Animesh, and good morning, audiences. I am Alok Tripathi. I am founder and CEO of RPA Tech. RPA Tech is a company which is purely in area of robotic process automation services. So we provide services and we are platform agnostics, and we started in 2017 with the aspect that there was not enough new methods of doing robotic process automation implementation. And most of the people were following software development or process improvement. So we came up with different way of implementing rapidly within enterprises. And since then, we are doing it successfully. I have also written a book on robotic process automation in 2016. And it was at that time one of very good bestseller book on Amazon. And people really appreciate at that time, there was not enough literature available. So from that perspective, I'm very excited to join this panel of learned and battle-hardened people in this industry. Looking forward to the discussion.
Thanks, Alok. Rakesh, if we can have a few words about yourself.
Thanks. A very good morning, everyone, and a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Animesh, for the way you opened the session. And Alok, it was very nice to know about the journey which you had. And you rightly said, I think sometimes it's very difficult to create literature when it is not available. So I have seen some of that in my life as well. So briefly, I'm the founder and chief executive officer for this Quintes Global. We are a new age transformation and tech integrated business services and solutions company. We focus across enterprise services area, et cetera, et cetera. And I think from this topic point of view, I'm also a recipient of services on RPA. So we actually deploy RPA, AI, et cetera, as a part of our own organization when we deliver services for our customer, as well as we have a concept called transformation in a box, where we walk into the customers to see how we can drive the value and just not deploy technology. So we look at tech, plus the change and the stakeholder value delivery as a part of the offering. So I'm also a partner to the RPA firms many times to deploy it to the organizations. I'm an alumni of AMCAL. I'm been very fortunate to be recognized by Economic Times and Times as one of the most promising business leader in 2021, and looking forward to the dialogue which we have now.
Great, Rakesh. Thanks so much. Udeet, let's last but not the least, we would love to hear about you, your introduction, and then we take the discussion forward.
Thanks, Animesh, and thanks for having me on this panel. First of all, great to be amongst industry luminaries like you guys, right? To give you a quick background, I lead business, as you mentioned, geographically for PureSoftware. And at the same time, a dual hat is that I head the automation and fintech business units. To explain what PureSoftware does, it's easy to say we're a technology platform and services company, right? And I was just talking to Devanshu and he said there are 200 such companies just in his portfolio in Gurgaon. But where probably we're relatively different, we're about 1,200 plus organization. What we have been doing is investing in digital and in our own IPs over time. We started this automation center of excellence specifically in 2017 when RPA was just starting up as a wave in this part of the world. And from there, we then decided what technologies we wanted to invest in, what kind of IPs or frameworks we wanted to create. And we started investing towards industry frameworks based on RPA, and then going further towards intelligent automation, advanced AI, adding those components to allow business processes to be automated much faster for customers. So that's what our team's been doing over here. And I'm happy to bring in that knowledge today on the panel, just talking about the experiences that we've had.
Great. So let's kick off, Alok, with you, and at the broad level, let's talk. Where does RPA fit in that overall scheme of automation? Automation is and along with digital, it's a in my opinion a very overused word. So if you can help fit, where is RPA coming in the overall scheme of automation?
Sure, Animesh. In fact, automation, as you rightly said, is a big word. And robotic process automation, by name itself, we can say it is a way of doing automation. There are multiple ways of doing automation. And since we are talking about digital transformation, I will start from there, that RPA is a stepping stone towards larger digital transformation initiatives. Enterprises often start their digital transformation with journey implementing RPA. Some people call it low-hanging fruit. I don't like calling that way, but implementing RPA solution in the repetitive manual tasks actually give you quick wins. And RPA can provide significant cost saving while trying to put the foundation of digital transformation. So digital transformation consists of multiple technologies where an enterprise can, how much footprint they have in the digital ecosystem, how their communication with their vendors, customers, employees is happening, whether it is in a digital ecospace or not. And when enterprises start their journey where they are lacking, specifically the companies which are older and not new gen companies. So when they start, there are multiple technologies come in the picture. RPA is one of those technologies which help in digital transformation journey, but it is not digital transformation, okay? And automation, when you automate something within an organization, RPA is one of those technology which can be used. With advent of RPA, what happens, multiple technologies came in under this umbrella. And now companies like UiPath, Microsoft, Automation Anywhere are coming up with more offering of AI, NLPs, and other stuff to be part of this platform. And sometimes if you are invested in these platforms, it's easier to use that in your digital transformation journey rather than having a different approach and using it as a piece automation. RPA is particularly useful with the legacy system if you have, and many enterprises with the legacy system
will have difficulty in their digital transformation journey. RPA makes it really easy. Okay, so you can do automation with other technologies as well. However, RPA makes it easy because of being low code, having a lot of resources available in the market who can do it for you, and understanding of the automation with RPA becomes easier to see because it mimics human action on the screen. Okay, so the core of RPA that mimicking human action on the computer. So a person taking any human action on the computer can be mimicked by this RPA technology. And at the same time, the new age RPA automation, some people start calling it intelligent automation, hyper automation, cognitive automation, is actually integrating AI and other technology with RPA gives you much more benefit that is required. And best benefit, if you go through RPA in your automation journey, RPA can be deployed rapidly and it can scale. Okay, there are many companies I meet that they struggle with the scaling, but that's a different thing that they are, whether how the journey they are taking. But as a technology, this can be scaled any point of time. At mid of night, if you want to scale your bots who are working on a particular process, you can do with few clicks only. And that is a big benefit that offer these kind of automation. It's not a piece automation. It is kind of a digital worker, which can be replicated, cloned, and give you unlimited scalability in achieving your target. So when you are a part of your digital transformation journey, wherever you face problem in connecting system, connecting with people, connecting with your vendor, customer, and other things. A very good example is if you have a chatbot, you want a chatbot for your organization, but your chatbot is not giving meaningful information to your customers. How do you do that? Either you build large back-end system which can access all the information in silos, or you have a digital worker which can pick those information from multiple systems and supply it to your chatbot to give it to your customer. So that's one of the very good use cases where we see that how you can connect system using a digital worker or robotic process automation. And with the advent of AI ML with RPA, this has become a stepping stone for all digital transformation journeys.
Oh, great. So I picked up two words over there. And as we move forward, I would like to elaborate, get you all to elaborate on this. One is the digital worker piece, and the second is the legacy system interconnectivity on scaling with legacy systems. But Rakesh, I'll come to you. Are Indian companies seeing a higher traction of automation, with international companies? So companies like yours, are you all seeing more customers coming in from international companies in India, or are you seeing even Indian companies adopting RPA?
No, I think it's a fantastic point, Animesh. And I think building on what even Alok was saying, there's a lot of opportunity which RPA provides when you're trying to go through this entire transformation journey, or what we call digital transformation. RPA is one of the route to reach there. And then multiple periphery to RPA is there to further build on it, and so on and so forth. From an India and international point of view, I'll put it into three buckets, this entire point. The bucket one is, as always, India leapfrogs technologies. Now you talk about telecom to mobility. I think the way we leapfrogged as a country, I think similarly in all the technology we have leapfrogged. So if it is about robotic process automation, you will find Indian companies have leapfrogged on many areas as compared to global international organization, and that too post-pandemic, actually quite more. The challenge has been this leapfrogging has happened more on the engineering, R&D sides, talent side, and so on and so forth. But when it comes to their enterprise processes, enterprise functions, you will still find there's a huge opportunity which is available. While the potential, and that's the second bucket I will say, while the potential is something which they understand, it is, there's a sense that it is possible, but still because of those legacy environment, and actually what Alok was saying, it works well with the legacy environment. Unfortunately, the legacy mindset still pulls it down and becomes difficult to embrace and adopt it. The third area where I see there's a lot of work which has to be done by the provider organization, if I can say, or the partner organization here, is to drive that, because this entire thing, this entire robotic process automation is not new for many companies, as I'm saying, on the leapfrogging on the front end side or the production side. When it comes to enterprise functions, many of these providers, being a global in nature and they're working for international companies, their approach and the price points are not something which is suiting the Indian enterprises. That is point number one. Point number two, the approach in terms of focusing more on the, while robotic process automation is about process focused, but it is only going to be successful if it focuses beyond process, like data and information transformation. It focuses on cultural shift. It focuses on agility and experience shift for the users. Many times these are the POCs, as we call it in our typical technology world, the POCs, which is picked by many of the tech providers, are very much limited to those use cases or areas where the value is not experienced by the functional users. The time it takes to deploy the POC is so long that it becomes difficult to actually scale up beyond POC, and many POCs don't see that the light of the day, and it actually dies. The change management is very different and difficult in Indian context and India environment, and that has to be kept in the mind. That's where the stakeholder mapping, the cultural shift, etc., becomes very critical. The another perspective on this from India company is the piecemeal strategy, that POC, which works very well for international company because they have that still an overall global strategy where the POC connects back to the organizational strategy. Where in India, when you push it, that piecemeal strategy of doing a POC, it never connects back to the overall organizational strategy. And again, it becomes a very functional driven, one process driven kind of a change and does not see the success. That's another challenge. The last point I would like to make here for the India companies is, and it is true for even global, but in the global case, you get a better ROI because of sometimes even having the arbitrage advantages, because they still look at from the headquarter point of view, what could have been the cost of their talent, and they're getting their processes automated, etc. From India point of view, they look at more ROI and payback. And now every CFO wants to look at a payback in the year, not even looking at 3 years down the line. While there's a lot of value and cost optimization possible, the story still remains to be sold well to the CFO beyond the CIOs. So I think the CFOs needs to buy that story more often. These are a few things I wanted to share as a perspective from the context of India point of view. Animesh, back to you.
Okay, great. So one more point to adding to Alok's digital worker and legacy, and you carried on with the legacy point. The cultural thing which you brought out, I think that's another item which we will, I would like to, carry forward, and as how time permits, I would take inputs from all of you on this issue also, because culture is something which is a big aspect, especially in India, and we are bringing a digital worker along with a human worker. So that aspect, how we all have handled, I think that's something which I would love to. And now coming to Udeet, Rakesh just spoke about the ROI and the issues where people in India still look at that aspect. The CFO still thinks in terms of, how many people, full-time employees am I going to kind of replace? So which industries in India are you seeing at the adoption of RPA? What processes are you seeing the maximum traction? So if you could, given that you are selling across geographies, Asia Pac, Middle East, how's the adoption seen in India and the points which Rakesh raised?
Sure. Thanks, Animesh. So I'm going to continue that thread, right? What Rakesh and Alok talked about, because it correlates into this question as well. if you look at it, you're right. CIOs, and not just in India, everywhere, CFOs are looking at labor arbitrage. CIOs are looking at how does it help my technology meet the needs of the business quicker, right? And the functional head is looking at how do I get my deliverables done faster. That's been a common trend across geographies, across industries. And if we go back a little bit on how RPA has come about also as a journey, obviously, process automation in its origin has existed in some form or the other forever. There's been BPM, there's been some form of automation on top by creating scripts or frameworks or so on. What the RPA tools in particular have done is make it a configurable interface that allows you to drag and drop, and therefore simplifies this process of automating a particular business specification or a functional requirement, and therefore allowing for more easily accessible talent, not just necessarily highly skilled developers, to be able to do process automation. Now, when we talk of this, the first use case or the first industry that really comes to mind, and I'm sure my other panelists will agree with it, when RPA came to India, the first ones to adopt was the BPOs and the shared service centers, simply because they were catering to a global clientele. And when they were catering to this global clientele, for them, they are in fixed price managed service contracts where whatever they can save on cost of labor is essentially profit for them, right? The processes are very well defined because these are large Fortune 1000 companies that have outsourced processes to them for getting that labor arbitrage from US or from any other Western market to India. And at the same time, there's a standard operating procedure defined. So the ability to automate such a process was very clear. The ROI was very clear, and it was easy to deliver. So we started from there. And that was probably the biggest success story, still continues to remain to a large extent. But then we have Indian companies itself coming in and adopting RPA in a larger fashion. And there, again, correlating it to the rest of the world, the trend is similar. It starts with probably banking and financial services. It starts with telecommunication firms, where the need for technology adoption is much higher, where the legacy systems that need process automation to manage them is much higher. So we've seen customer service centers of banks, of telcos going for RPA. We've seen front-end processes like digital onboarding being done using RPA as one of the pieces to plug in that entire journey. We've seen in telecommunications processes on the billing side of things also being automated. One of the very interesting use cases we did for a customer in India was prepaid number circle rotation. So obviously we have different circles for telcos in India. And how do you actually manage the prepaid number flow when the number has expired and allow it to go from one circle to the other if required? It's a very clear process actually when you delve deeper into it, right? That could be automated as well. So long as you have a very clear vision of what the procedure or SOP is, this is a good use case to automate. And that's what industries across the board have been doing. The last one that has come on board, but where we see increasing use cases coming in, was on manufacturing, right? And manufacturing would be in terms of not just enterprise services, which is applicable across industries, and that's where obviously finance, HR come in, but on core processes. Core could be material management, inventory management, order management, logistics, and you have the entire interfacing with ERP, with logistics, warehouse management systems, which RPA tools have done well. They've brought in adapters that could plug into SAP or plug into Oracle and allow for that process automation to happen. So then we had this whole manufacturing wave come in as well. So we've got purchase order generation, we've got logistics and warehouse management processes on the supply chain being automated to bring in better benefits, bring in better ROIs for that business unit. So it's been a gradual adoption, but I think now we see pretty much every industry across the country adopting RPA, so long as the scale demands it.
Okay. So you touched on a multitude of companies, industries, sorry, and the kind of processes in India that they have done. So we've started getting questions on the question board. So I would urge all of y'all, wherever y'all have queries, please put them on the question board. We'll start taking them as part of the discussion, or maybe a little later. But Rakesh, I'll come back to you at this point. What have been the learnings? So you spoke about cultural. That's the reason I had picked that item up. What have been the learnings that you now have with so many industries that are getting, are applying RPA, and it's becoming more and more standard, especially with if you have experiences with manufacturing companies or with finance, which Udeet spoke about. If you can elaborate a little bit on that, on the learnings that you've taken over the years that you've been doing this.
No, sure. I think, and Udeet quite well articulated the approach of adoption over the period of time, how it started with shared services, BPO and BFSI, and then now to even manufacturing. I think looking some learnings and reflecting back on some of the learnings from the RPA point of view, I'll say, is it a strategy or is it a desperation? That's another thing which we have seen. It becomes a challenge sometimes. What we call, using that very typical term which we use, FOMO, so fear of missing out something, and everybody's adopting it or trying to do something, so I should also do it and not be seen behind as compared to my peers or my friends and so on and so forth. There are people who are going after it and then they're struggling and not able to see the success. I think that is something which is important, and that's why our learning is it is best to have a enterprise-wide view, particularly with a connect to the journey which you want as an organization to take. So there has to be a connect to the purpose of the organization and back to what you want to take is a very important thing. Otherwise, it remains a piecemeal strategy and does not become successful. Second, I think, is also in terms of looking at, there's an interesting a phrase we use is called BIC to BIC. The first BIC stands for best in class and second stands for best in context, because each organization is different, each environment is different. So how you learn from that class and create your own class for your organization. So create a best in context. That's the number two, I will say. The number three is even the selection of the areas, like you're talking about manufacturing and a lot of this, connectors, adapters, which are there in terms of SAP, Oracle, etc. Not complicating the processes. So even if talking about like finance, and Udeet was giving example of purchase orders and AP, we have seen something called purchase to pay becoming touchless with the robotics process automation in a manufacturing environment. And very much possible where it is a right chemistry and the orchestra of the ERP as well as the robotics happen. That symphony overall with that orchestra of this two technology really makes a difference. So it is not only about robotics, it's also about how you leverage the legacy system together to make it touchless. So that's a success. The other point is to connect back to the scale. So are you trying to do it? What is the end objective which you have on the plate? Is it something about driving only the cost optimization and driving efficiency? There's one way to look at it. And this is where, again, the problem really starts creeping in, where the focus becomes too much on the efficiency and the cost, which anyways needs to be an outcome, but it becomes the solo focus, if I had to say. Where we lose the sight is on the effectiveness of the entire process and the effectiveness of the entire deployment. The technology deployment finally starts losing the value, and the experience of the user and the customer, again, it starts becoming a challenge, because you're trying to put a technology on a broken process and with no know-how left after a point of time. And I'm talking more in terms of India manufacturing context, as you talked about. I think over a period of time, again, it becomes a pain, then becoming an enabler, because the experience actually comes down by saying, well, somebody says, okay, there's a robotic which has been done. We don't know what happens there, which is passing the entry, where it is being passed in the SAP, etc. They have no clue, and it becomes more problem. So that's where, again, process simplification becomes an important learning, that if you don't focus on process simplification, along with as you are deploying a robotic process automation is a limitation or a challenge if you don't do that. And last point, which I think I talked about even in my last comment, is this connect of this cultural shift. If you're not able to make that cultural shift, great technologies don't become successful. I mean, you have a best of the technology platform, etc. But if they are not able to bring that change, they're not able to bring the story of the success, it is going to be a problem. And the payback today, everybody is like, even Udeet also reinforced that point. They're looking for in the year, not even 3 years down the line, 2 years down the line, in the year. So how you create. So while culture, efficacy, everything is there, experience is there, then there is a, the whole component of cost you can't get let go as a focus area. These are some of the focus learnings which I said we have learned. Technology as a platform is something which is important, but it is not the starting point. That's the way I will place it.
Absolutely. I think, way back in the late 90s, when ERP was just about coming into India in its full form, and you had all these players. So you had the SAPs and the Oracles of the world, but you also had people like MFG Pro and others. And I know we had as many failure stories that had the sob story to talk about as there were the successes. But eventually, the people did start learning and understanding how ERP can be deployed and how it fits into the overall scheme of things, which you just spoke about. So I'll take this forward now, Alok, with you. Now, given that you want to look at the big picture, or you want to on where this whole story of digital automation or the RPA, robotic process automation, comes in, have you seen more success with the big bang approach, where they say, okay, let's go on this 5, 10 processes or 20 processes, whatever? Or do you see more success with companies who start small, test, and then take it forward?
Okay, yeah. So I will start with it depends. Okay, so
all right,
we have implemented RPA in large direct customers in India and outside India. We have much big presence in India, and as rightly Rakesh said, the adoption in India has a different challenges than other companies, and Udeet mentioned BPO adoption. So I also started with the BPO route, and what was happening with BPOs, that they were taking big bang approach. Okay, they were first fixing on the platform, and then they were buying large number of licenses, and then they were doing manual process mining to figure out what to automate. And what I found that some of them failing big time because of, as many of you have mentioned, cultural shift. It was cannibalizing their own revenue. Okay, and this was not easy because the culture was coming from their customers from US, UK market, and they are gung-ho about RPA and other technology, and they had to adopt. From there, it moves on to the direct customers like manufacturing industry in India. I will take an example of, we worked with Vedanta, a large customer and a process film making manufacturer. Both of them taken a big bang approach and have been very successful in Indian context as well. So I will say it depends that implementing RPA, the two approaches, big bang approach or one process at a time approach. Both approaches have their advantages and disadvantages. And the decision on which approach to take will depend on organizational goals, resources, and risk tolerance. These three things are important: goals, resources, and risk tolerance. So let's start with the big bang approach. The approach involves implementing RPA across multiple processes or departments simultaneously. It requires a center, COE, or hub and spoke model or a large vendor engagement. The main advantage of this big bang approach is that it can help organization achieve rapid results. Okay, so please, one of the questions to be answered, if you go via big bang approach, the results will be faster coming in, because this is a big bang approach. By implementing RPA across entire organization at once, organization can standardize process, create a sense of urgency, and build momentum for the transformation. Additionally, the big bang approach can help organizations realize significant cost saving and operational efficiency in shorter amount of time. If we go and talk about one process at a time, okay. So what happens, one process at a time is suitable for those companies who have either less resources, their goal is not adopting RPA at a rapid pace, and there are a lot of risk involved. So budget risk is to be considered. So they can go with one process at a time approach, but it takes longer to achieve results, because you will taste one, you will implement one, taste the success, and then go to another one. This approach involves combination of elements of big bang also, that for example, organization may implement RPA across one or two key processes, okay, or one department or two department as a pilot project, and they gradually expand RPA processes over time. Many of the companies in India I have seen going to this approach, and they have also been successful, but it takes longer time. Sometimes I have seen companies who are taking this approach, that one process at a time. And when you are talking with those people to decide which processes to automate, because they are not doing big bang, they are not looking at all the process in organization and evaluating, they try to pick something which is popular or something horizontal like HR or invoice processing or procure to pay, which Rakesh mentioned that it is one of success. But without saying that how best that process for that organization is there, they may also see failure. And if they see failure first time in their first process, it becomes a negative impact in their organization, and adoptions also slow down. But if you take multiple processes or multiple departments together, so you will have some success, some failures, okay? And some will be not that successful. I will not call it failure, but some of them will be not that efficient, and some of them will be very efficient, like giving back ROI. And that the mix of those things will give a larger success field in the organization if you go with big bang approach. So both big bang and one process time approach have their advantages and disadvantages, and decision on which approach to take will depend on, as I said, what is the organization goal, how much resources they have available, and what is their risk tolerance. If they have better risk tolerance and they have resources, they should take big bang approach. And a hybrid approach may also be a viable option. Many of the organizations outside India have taken this approach, that they have a program of digital transformation through automation. They have center of excellence in their organization, which looks across the organization, what are the processes to be automated. Nowadays, process mining has become very viable and fashionable as well. People are getting value of it, and through process mining, they are able to figure out what are the processes that should be implemented fast. But they have a queue of processes to be automated, and depending on the resource availability and budget, those are getting automated across organization. And at the same time, they also pick the users within the organization through idea portal or through automation portal. Some people have their automation portal as well, where they send requests that this is the process in organization. I have seen processes like named as a 7-click process. Okay, so that process actually has 7 click only, and there were people sitting doing those 7 clicks. So the request came that just automate it because it takes nothing to automate it. So in a hybrid approach, this can be also done, that there are multiple processes being looked across organization, and some of the processes which are giving you rapid ROI to be implemented as one by one. So by carefully considering organization unique need and constraints, selecting the right approach of RPA implementation, right vendor can significantly benefit the automation and goal of the organization. The idea is to improve efficiency and accuracy. However, most of the time it comes down, as Rakesh said, is the cost and budget. So while people in India, the budget constraint becomes bigger because of the availability of the resources. Okay, so in most of the discussion, you will find that this can be done if I put 4 more people in this team. I will be able to do without automation. And then there is a more of convincing of how accuracy, quality, and customer satisfaction, which is speed of completing something, is important. And on that basis, adoption happen. So it depends on organization to organization that which approach they should take. In my experience, a big bang approach gives value faster in organization, and one by one approach is safer, but it takes much longer to actually get value.
Okay, so you made a valid point, and you almost have seen me suddenly smile. Is this nuance with our folks? Why can't I put 4 people instead of buying the tool and doing this? Which will bring me. I think we are getting a lot of questions. So what we'll do is, folks, if you all can put the questions on the question and answer board rather than the chat board, because then I'll have to go between the two to pick up your question. If you all can put it on the Q&A, then that will be simpler. Udeet, that brings us to a very valid point. Which is the better audience to focus on? Do you talk to the functional folks, or do they appreciate this more, or are the CIOs a better fit for this? And I'll in conjunction to that question, I'll just ask you, and I saw it somewhere on the chat or on the Q&A. People are also asking, this ROI story that we are talking about, is open source then a viable option to be looking at? Okay, because then that can help the ROI story. So if you can, Udeet, take this up, and time permitting, we'll open the house to a lot of these questions which have come up.
Sure. Thanks, Animesh. And I will try and keep a concise answer to that question so that we can take up some of these queries as well. But I would go with a simple answer there. Between a functional and a CIO, the person who will probably be more enthusiastic about RPA is the functional person. The functional business unit head, to me, sees a better visibility of their ROI in terms of adopting RPA. And I'll take, we've talked about the procure to pay use case. Very simply, if you look at a CFO, because finance processes is where we see maximum adoption in RPA in India. If you look at it from the CFO's perspective, what is the CFO's mandate? The CFO's mandate is to get correct data, to get it right first time, and to then make sure that their purchase orders, their billing, their invoicing, and their receivables are all being managed seamlessly in a way that when at the end of the day, he or she reports to the stakeholders, there's a complete view and it's a timely view. Now, if you look at it from that angle, a CIO or a CTO would say, hey, with my ERP system, you give me a little more budget. I'll build the APIs, I'll build certain integrations, I'll build dashboards for you. and I'll do the same thing that any RPA tool can do, and it will be more sustainable. And that comes to that next question of whether open source or, there's a message in chat about RPA being a band-aid. All of that fits into that whole perspective of, if you come from a technology angle, you see RPA in a different light. When you're coming from the functional angle and the CFO or any other business unit head is talking about RPA and is able to identify specific use cases which have the procedure well defined, they will immediately see benefit in automating that process. And automating that process does not mean, to Alok and your point, that if I was to put 4 people, I can do the same thing. No. When you automate, you get the efficiency benefits and you get the accuracy benefits. The quality of output is what matters at the end of the day. So if I'm a business unit head and I need my reports or I need my vendors to get their bills on time or my customers to pay me on time, I want that to be seamless. I don't want to depend on 5 people and their leaves and their priorities to be able to get that output. RPA is ensuring I do that, right? I can have my bots running 24/7, getting me that same output, which 8-10 people can do. But I'm assured that this is not going to change based on the quality of the person working on it. So that's where the functional business unit head will see a lot more value in RPA coming in. Having said that, you can't do without the CIO, CTO, right? At the end of the day, it is technology, it is a tool, be it open source or one of the out-of-the-box platforms, it has to be adopted into the overall architecture of that organization. So the CIO is just as much a stakeholder in the process.
Okay. Thanks. So let's just open house now. I'll throw the questions at you all in terms of I'll try and summarize them, and then so whoever wants to pick it up. I think there is a lot of resonance of the fact that you need to overall understand that RPA is just one component in the whole story. Now, what is one question which has come up from Sanjay is, what's your view on Power Automate Desktop? And Azad asks, is RPA helpful in mobile automation? So who would like to pick this up?
Okay, I'll answer that. The first, the Power Automate thing. Power Automate is another RPA tool. Okay, there are so many RPA tools. Power Automate is another. And Power Automate is from Microsoft. Microsoft initially had some kind of offering, even in a .NET. They used to have a library called UI automation. Some of the people I led in pre-RPA era use those libraries to automate things. Later on, Microsoft acquired a company called Softomotive, and that Softomotive became Power Automate Desktop. So Power Automate Desktop, Power Automate, the full offering from Microsoft is totally competitive to what UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and Blue Prism is offering. Sometimes I use a phrase or sentence to explain those things. Whether it's a Maggi tomato sauce or Kisan tomato chili sauce, it's a branding, okay? So one feature in one RPA platform, you will see the same feature in coming month in another RPA platform. So when your comfort, your people comfort with the technology, your budget constraint, and your partners in the journey should be comfortable with that platform when achieving the automation that you are aiming to. So platform agnostics is important. You can choose any one of the top platforms and do it. Power Automate is one of them. Few people find it comfortable because of their licensing is going to be easier if you are enterprise customer of Microsoft. And
okay. Yeah, the other one was on mobile automation. Is RPA helpful in mobile automation?
No, RPA is not, I will answer it plainly without beating around the bush, that it's not very good at mobile automation, and we don't recommend mobile automation to be done. When you talk about a digital worker, so think from that perspective, you can give your digital worker either a desktop, laptop, virtual machine, or mobile. So why don't you give them a virtual machine, desktop kind of machine? Why you will give them a mobile. So I assume the person who asked this question was thinking from the attended automation, that's something which helps a person to do something. So there are many other things available, like if this then that, and other kind of automation available with Apple and Android within the mobile, that you can automate rudimentary tasks within your mobile. But RPA is, I will say, is a kill for a small automation.
Okay. Then there's a question, how a company is taking up RPA, more like a solution or as a service? Are stakeholders bothered about the RPA products, or are they open to even customized automation services? So Rakesh or Udeet, if you would like to address this.
Yeah, I think I can take this briefly. I think two folds to this entire question. One is which platform. I think even Alok also clarified, and I completely believe that the platform is the last one to really look at. Where you really start is, and I think the question was also, I think when Udeet was talking about the functional head versus CIO, I will say it's about sponsor. So there are a few things I say which makes a difference is, do you have a sponsor who believes in that strategy, who has a story to communicate? So if he has a story to communicate by saying, why I'm trying that, why this is going to become meaningful. And again, going back to what Alok was saying, big bang versus processes, it's about the story. So if you have that right story for that organization, it could be multiple areas, multiple processes is important. Go beyond the processes to look at information, the effectiveness of the services, and look at the experience, what is going to create. Is it something which you're trying to do a band-aid, or you're trying to cure a problem? That is where I'll say it's a solution, and solution which finally delivers services. So you are building a solution which has to deliver services. It's not a one-time fix. And finally, of course, the platform, as he was talking about, I think the platform agnostic is what I will say. The stakeholders are not bothered about it. Until unless they're desperate, they're into that same FOMO mode by saying, I should do something because my friends are doing it, and so on and so forth.
Okay. One question from Ravi Chitkara. What is the cost of change management for any robotics process, and how to justify the same and additional tech support required to maintain and retain the robotics infrastructure? And I think I'll add, I'll club this with another one, which has come from Pragmat. How can the scalability be addressed while adopting RPA? Is it more applicable to the smaller organizations where the expansions are likely to happen? So if y'all can answer the two together, the cost of change management and how do you justify the additional tech support needed, as well as the scalability issue.
Let me take that, and probably you guys can come in with your experience. Look, when you start with a process, and it comes down to change management, comes down to that same fundamental part that we've been talking about throughout this session, right? How well defined is your need and your process? If the process is clear, if you know what you are trying to do, and the sponsor is clear that there are benefits of automating this particular process, then change management is like any other technology change management, right? Where it is budgeted as a part of the plan. And you know that there will be unforeseen hiccups that will come up when you are rolling out that particular bot. So you handle it accordingly. If you expect RPA to be a be-all, end-all answer to all your problems related to that business process, and don't expect to spend anything around it, then you are setting the wrong expectations for yourself. It's as simple as that. So you have to plan for change, you have to budget for that change, and you have to budget and plan for the support after that as well. What RPA is doing is, it is helping you improve the efficiency. It is helping you bring in a way of doing things better, faster, and assuring you of the quality of it. But at the same time, if you think that just implementing one bot will not need any support in the future, will not need any change in the future, then that is setting the wrong expectations. Please do plan for it. Alok, Rakesh, you have something to add?
No, I just want to add that I think absolutely, very rightly said. I think the one learning which we have got is, while we all look at this tech deployment more from the project implementation point of view, but not look at from the change implementation point of view. I have seen many of these tech deployments having a very nice project plans, and it becomes a one-time focus. And after a point of time, it is handed over back to the business, whatever it is. I think the change management is something which get lost, and hence the change needs to be part of the entire program. It has to be separately focused, if I have to say. It can't be just tucked in as a one-line item by saying some communication and so on and so forth. It is a very, very critical component of when you are creating an investment benefit use case, when you're creating by saying, okay, what is the cost of the current cost and the future cost, etc. To look at that, bake that cost of change very clearly. And the cost of change can be sometimes even sizable than the kind of the problem which you're trying to solve for. And that's where the entire story matters, by saying what is the story, what is that problem you're trying to solve for, and what is the kind of change. It's a legacy. I think there's a question or a comment somebody is having about legacy system versus legacy culture. Yes. I will say legacy system you can live with, but legacy culture is not going to give you what you're trying to look at. So RPA works very well with legacy system, right? But it does not work well with the legacy culture. So culture change is going to be the most critical component. In fact, one of the saying which we have in our company is we say, the project is successful, the change has not happened. It is like operation successful, patient died, right? So we need to be more careful about that. The question of the scalability, I think there's a question which you're talking about. Scalability, we have seen from 2-3 perspectives. One is the scalability of the similar processes. Like you take example, like, purchase to pay, volume is usually high for any organization. So there is a scalability which you create in both the contexts. For a smaller organization or larger organization, you already have a scale. A smaller organization which is trying to scale up will build a scale, it fits in. But it is just not about volume of the transaction. It could be even expanding the scope of the processes can also bring the scalability. And that is what I was talking about, like you have seen in the case of like treasury. It works very well because it is not just about the number of transactions, but do you connect the multiple touch points in the processes? Like simple things like bank statement reconciliation, very high value process. The volume is not high, but the value is very high because the efficacy of that process can save you dollars. Similarly, again, going back on many of these reconciliation processes, which brings a lot of financial integrity, balance sheet integrity, etc. That makes a lot of impact. It's not just about the volume; it is about scaling up.
Okay, so we are just about running out of time. Devanshu, can we answer these questions offline? Can we get these questions, because there's still about 6-7 of them, or can we extend this session by about 5 minutes?
We can extend the session by 5 minutes if you guys are
okay. Okay, if all the panelists, if you all are okay for 5 more minutes, I'll try and cover all the remaining questions.
Yeah, let's quickly answer.
Okay. So Linz has asked, is it a good idea to have good practice to have multiple RPA tools? And just adjacent to that, is it a big concern? This is from Jaya Brata, that RPA solution providers sometimes face challenges in understanding business processes like financial ops. If so, how to bridge the gap? I think these two questions are correlated, because maybe they went in for multiple tools because some processes were well handled with Blue Prism, while something was better handled with another product. So what's your view on that?
So I'll take that and let other comment after that. Multiple tools, RPA tools, may be one of the strategy for large organizations specifically, which have multi-vendor policy. So like in old ages, the people used to have two Compaq and HP, both providing computers. But in those cases, it used to happen that both vendors are supplying the same thing. But here, when you have multiple RPA tools, you have to have capability on those multiple RPA tools. And if you have really large team, then you can have different team handling different things, or some people are cross-trained on both of the things. But I find it easier to have one tool, one platform, if it is not multi-vendor strategy to risk mitigation. Then it's easier to execute. But there's no need to marry. At any point of time, it is easy to implement the other tool as well. And as I said, most of them are Maggi tomato sauce versus Kisan tomato or hence tomato ketchup. So it is easy to switch between tools, but having one make it easier, having multiple make it safer.
Okay.
And the other question was?
So in terms of, is it because, does this happen more because of the vendors do not understand the business processes like financial ops? And so how do you bridge the gap?
Yeah, this is actually very big question and well debated in our industry. And there are two school of thoughts about it, that domain-led versus tech-led. Okay. So the people who understand process will be able to automate better. The people who understand tech better will be able to automate. And it is very difficult to find companies and people who understand both better. And everybody has their own way of selling it. But my take on this is that the processes which are being run in an organization is owned by that organization. Okay. They have matured it. They know nitty-gritty of this. And sometimes suggesting them that you should change it this way or that way is not very productive, because however good at something you are, the person who is doing day in day out is better at it. And the same ways, it's if I may take example of Shark Tank, that if a founder has invented something and a founder is doing something, someone from outside coming and saying that no, you are not inventing it in better way, is a wrong way of looking at it, because that guy is doing it day in day out. Having said that, there are companies who are into process consulting. Okay. Who, for example, GST reconciliation. Okay. So the people who understand GST reconciliation will be the better people to tell an organization what is the right way of doing it, what is statutory compliance, and how you should be doing efficiently. This is process knowledge. It has nothing to do with whether you automate it or do it manually. In both cases, you should be doing it efficiently. So I suggest people to take it separate. Even people get tempted because since I am redoing it, why not let's simplify, transform, better it, and that put it in a cycle that once it is not working, whether it was not working because you changed the process or the automation is not successful. So I generally recommend that the people who are doing are the best knowledge workers who knows the stuff. Okay. I'm talking about the company, not the people. And the people who are automating should listen to them and automate. So today, task mining, process mining can give you even slightest detail about that process, that how it should be doing, what steps are being done.
So I'll just take then two quick questions, which are, I would think, related. What's the do you need to build some awareness on the difference between RPA and regular test automation? And there's another one which is come in, which is what is the difference between RPA and macros? And how will you decide the use of different bots in each process? So Udeet, would you want to take that up?
So look, I can contribute for the first one. Probably Alok is better equipped to answer the difference between macros and RPA. But RPA is a holistic end-to-end way of automating your way of doing business. Let me put it that way, right? It is not just a tool or a technology automation. It is not a use case automation from a testing perspective. So you can't come in thinking that I'm doing this and now I can do it faster using an RPA tool. No, you are changing the way your process is run. And as Alok said, you need not re-engineer the process. The process can remain the same. The systems underlying it can remain the same, but it is an end-to-end process change. Now, whether it is being done using a tool or a custom script that has been built or anything else, or a macro for that matter, if applicable, is up to you. But all of them would at a certain level qualify as process automation. So creating that piece of bot which really does that end-to-end journey automation is what RPA is all about. So I completely disagree when it's compared to a test automation. Have their own utility, and RPA caters to a different utility from everything else.
Okay.
Rakesh, you'll want to answer the macros part of it better?
Oh, yeah, okay. So macro and RPA is certainly different. When RPA terms came in the market, I use this in some of the seminar webinar that is a sophisticated macro when it was starting. So sophistication is more important. So macro is a way of automating things. People still use it, but RPA is another way of automating things. Some of the things which RPA can do, macro can't do. For example, surface automation. So mimicking human action in the computer is the strength of RPA. Macro is just some line of code which can automate the few stuff on Excel and other.
Okay. So I'll just take the last question. RPA is like a digital. This is from Rajiv Soni, and because we've just shot even the 5 minutes. RPA is like a digital workforce for the organization and assisting business around the clock through process automation. What's your recommendation to effective monitoring and support of these bots on production? In case we have thousands of bots running on production, can't afford any disruption in service and downtime. Yeah. Also, if underlying system goes under change, upgrade, these bots get impacted heavily. Getting them back to work is also an expensive affair for the organization. Any recommendation around these challenges? So, Rakesh, if you can quickly address this.
No, I think a very fair point, and I think that's where again the change of the mindset of the organization needs to come into play. As we use the term, the organization uses a lot of term like digital work. For the same time, we say, humbot, like where you are human and the bot working together, right? Like for the human, you have your entire org effectiveness, human capital department to look at the same thing by saying, how you engage them, how you, keep them as a part of the organization, how you maintain them, and so on and so forth. Monitor their performance, monitor their productivity, monitor the change. Because if you're changing a system or the process, you manage the change of the human behavior as well. Similarly, there is a need to have a very, a focused center of excellence to look at the bots in production. The way you have to monitor their performance, monitor their capacity, monitor the utilization, because many times they're deployed but not well utilized. So same way, like you look at the human performance, you look at the bot performance, as well as look at what kind of maintenance which is required, because there could be a need for upgradation and so on and so forth because the system changes. So both needs, like you have an HR department, I'm loosely saying, you can't just say IT department will take care of it. It has been given to the production will take care of it. You need to have maintenance, given the scale which somebody is talking about 1,000. If it is about 10 also, it requires that concentrated effort and focus very clearly.
Okay, thanks so much, Udeet, Alok, and Rakesh. I appreciate the time and the knowledge that you have shared with the participants, and I'm so glad to see that even now there are a whole lot of folks who are watching us and patiently listening to this. So this must have been very informative for them. Thanks again, and Devanshu, would you want to close the session?
Sure.
Firstly, I'd like to thank all the panelists for taking time out of your busy schedule and doing this. This has been a really helpful session, and you can see the response on the chat window and the kind of questions that we got today. And we were fortunately we were able to answer all of them. So a big thank you to all the panelists, and I'll also like to thank everybody who has attended the session today. And we look forward to hosting you to more such sessions. Have a great day, everybody. So we'll be signing off.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Devanshu. Thank you, everyone.